Welcome.
Hi, Gabe.
Hi.
Hey, Gabe.
I'm so humbled. I feel so blessed to have Rory Miller and Randy King. Is it Randy King live or just Randy King?
My real name is Randy King, but the branding's working.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so blessed to have these guys here. Why don't you just do a quick intro of who you are and maybe what you're known for?
Cool. Randy, you want to start?
Sure. I'm Randy King. I am an education-based self-defense instructor based out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I've been teaching self-defense for 15 years, and I am very lucky, and I get to travel the world and teach other people. So I focus most of my attention on the educational side of things and a little bit less on the physical, hence the name of my company, 80-20, 80% education, 20% physical skills.
Great. Thanks for telling me that because I was wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Welcome, Randy.
Thank you.
And
You
then-
clearly thought that through.
Yeah.
I've done this before.
Okay. I'm Rory Miller. I've been a martial artist since 1981. In 1991, I started in corrections, which gave me a lot of live experience. Did that for a while, managed to end up as a sergeant who was running the tactical team. Then this is shorthand for something else, but I got bored and went to Iraq as a contractor. In the process, wrote a couple of books. Came back from Iraq knowing I never wanted to work for a government again. And the only marketable skills I have are only legal if you're doing them for a government. So I went into teaching by default.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thanks, Rory. And I didn't know that you wrote books while you were over in Iraq. Is that where Meditations
No,
was written on? That was kind of a journal, wasn't it?
I wrote meditations before that. It was the one thing I've been really happy with. I'd always been pretty much psychologically robust. I didn't take the stuff home. There'd be the fightings and jail is, as you know, is both. It has horrifying stuff. It has hilarious stuff, but I generally didn't take it home. And then I had one bad year. And I've gone over my journals from that time, and it wasn't that bad except for some of the stuff. It's wound up blowing a hole in a guy. We delivered a baby in reception.
Oh, wow.
A friend committed suicide, and for the first time, I started taking it home. So meditations originally was just me trying to write out of my head because I was so tired of trying to fix it in my head. And it kind of got accidentally published.
Really?
A friend sent it to a publisher and then told me afterwards.
Oh, wow.
And so that was the one I wrote before Iraq. After that, we were working a lot. We had a lot of dead time, so I did a lot of writing.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And we should probably tell the people watching this, when we say meditations, we're talking about a book called Meditations on Violence. And tell me the subtitle again.
I think that I don't remember, but it was distinguishing between real-world violence and martial arts primarily.
Right.
But also cultural stuff. There's a joke within our group. I'm not allowed to name things. Because my title on
You guys are cruel.
well, no, because
There's a reason.
there's a reason. It's like my title on the book that I actually wrote was The Rhinoceros and the Unicorn.
Oh, really?
No one would pick that up off a bookshelf
Right.
ever.
Okay, I get it now.
Violence Dynamics.
He wanted to call it,
I wanted
yeah.
to call it. It's the Violence Dynamics Seminar, and I wanted to call it the VD Clinic. And
Yeah.
This is why you can't name stuff,
I'm
you
not
see.
allowed to
Your
name
real
stuff
friends will tell
anymore.
you the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because they love you.
Yes, yes. I wasn't allowed to name my kids, or that would have been
great.
fun. Nifty, Spiffy, yeah. And Swifty would have been the names.
Well, on that note, I want to tell everybody why you are actually present today in Aspen, Colorado. You know, I run the Discovery Cafe, which is a nonprofit charitable organization, and wanted to honor law enforcement in our community this year. And I thought, what a better way than to have, I know you don't like the word legend, but I was going to say two legends.
Oh,
Legend is one
Two
step away
icons?
from myth, and myth means it's not real.
Well,
Icon's
You
good.
played-
I'll
you-
take Icon.
Icon?
yeah, you played a very pivotal role in my, I guess, my career. yeah, maybe we'll get back to that. But, you know, in my mind, you're legendary. So take it for what it's worth.
In most people's minds, I would say. I think because you've written...
my middle finger's going to get tired scratching my eyes.
But it's important. You've written so many books. You've affected so many people. Affected so many people training and gave them a new lens to look through. Just accept it for 2 seconds.
I love that, new lens to look through. And that, I mean, you articulated that so well. I was trying to, I have a little note, a piece of paper that I left in my car. I'm like, no, I got this. But I was trying to figure out exactly how I wanted to say it. That was well said. Discovery Cafe, so we're a nonprofit charitable organization. As you know, as you both know, that I'm a former convict, 3-time convicted felon. I've been to Colorado Department of Corrections 7 times. I was joking last night that obviously I'm a slow learner, but really it had more to do with I wasn't ready to change. You know, I wasn't ready to do something different. And until somebody's ready, there's not really much people can do other than just keep offering them love and non-judgmental support. And we try to do that in our space now. It's a recovery community center, the Discovery Cafe, for people struggling from any kind of trauma, homelessness, past incarceration, domestic violence, any type of abuse, and all the other mental health challenges that are out there. It's been on my heart to be of service, and it gives meaning and redemption to the wreckage of my past. And part of my journey getting to where I am today to run this place was I became a Krav Maga instructor, and I was introduced to your book, Meditations on Violence. And well, before we get there, I do want to say the whole point of me talking about Discovery Cafe is the fact that you are here donating your time. I want to make the point, thank you so much that you donated your time to come and do a 2 full day, Saturday and Sunday, a self-defense seminar. Tonight we're going to do 3 hours of conflict communication, another book that Rory wrote. Yeah, and I've read that, and it's great. It helped me with my bouncing. My bouncing and security career, my marriage, it helped me. It helped me a lot. You know, it really did. It's really insightful, and but it just means a lot that you came to do this. That we're honoring law enforcement. It's free for all local law enforcement officers in our valley, and yeah. So why don't you guys tell me? Go ahead.
As long as we're embarrassing each other, I want
Sure,
to make you
go ahead.
blush.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
You can try.
we booked,
Come on.
my system, in our system, we booked 40,000 people a year.
Say that again. Say it
In our
loud.
system, we booked 40,000 people a year.
Wow.
These are people freshly arrested off the streets, and so many of them were repeat customers. And it was so easy to get cynical, and because people can change, but most people don't. And one of the reasons that I connected with you as fast as we did when we first met is you are proof that redemption is possible, that positive change is possible, that it happens, and that if that's not anywhere in your history or in your social, there's a phrase called shadow community, the community of people in your head, whether they're real or not, that tell you how the world works. If that's not in there, you'll burn out so fast, and you'll get so bitter and cynical. And you are one of a handful of people in my life that keep me from being cynical.
Well, thank you. That's I'm into
See, he's blushing. I got it.
Yeah, you got me. You got me. You made me. Yeah, good job. Thank you. That's really humbling and kind. Yeah, statistics show.
I'm not kind. I don't do compliments. I do observations.
It's easy to say nice things when they're true,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Wow.
Well said.
Thank you.
I'm done here. I guess I'm just speechless. I don't want
is
to
a
get my
mic drop
ass. I don't want
moment.
to get
You
my
could
ass
go right
kicked.
now.
You know, I don't know.
We've had you on my show a couple of times.
Yeah.
You're one of the guests that stood out because of the redemption story, because you can really see, like, there's people that redeem. You can really see your passion for it. So it's everything Rory said.
Well,
Seconded.
Thank you both. Let's shift the focus to you guys now.
No, I like this. Let's keep the
Yeah,
pressure
but
on.
statistically, guys like me don't make it, and you know, getting into Krav Maga. I started Krav Maga training. I took my first class when I was 40. Still homeless on the streets. Just kind of like my link back to my Jewish heritage, and I thought it was cool. It really just spoke to me, and from there, I was introduced to your books and your videos and your training, and that led me to being introduced to Mr. King over here. But through Krav Maga and through the training and training seminars, I've had the opportunity to meet police officers and correction officers, and to become friends with people that you know, I never thought I'd be friends with, and that in itself just made me feel good. Martial arts, I don't know if you even want to call Krav Maga martial art, but that's a whole nother like conversation, right? But it just helped build my self-confidence, my self-esteem, and then meeting good people like both of you through the process has helped me become the person I am today. So
Awesome.
So thank you. Yeah. So why don't you tell us why are you guys driving across America? Like what's going on, man? How did these two guys got together and you're on tour?
Yeah.
So
We're on
What is
tour.
it?
Kind of.
Kind of.
We're basically
Tell me
doing
what's
a
going
bad
on.
buddy road trip movie with seminars around the
To fund it.
place to fund it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to be part of the process.
Yeah.
To be frank, and because of the tone of this show,
Yeah, man.
this
Keep it real.
this was the light at the end of the tunnel for both me and Rory. So COVID
All right.
COVID shut my gym down in Edmonton, kept us locked in our houses. I'm a secret introvert, and Rory secretly loves people. So he does secretly.
Depends on how they're cooked.
But I needed to get out. I needed to get out and do stuff. I needed to do what I do, right? I left my job in the corporate world in advertising to help people. That's why I started this. I didn't do it for money. I clearly did not do it for money. I didn't do it for money. I didn't do it for anything other than trying to help. And this event that we're all living through didn't allow me to do what I wanted to do. So this was mostly a light at the end of the tunnel. We were both in a bad spot. I was not my best self. I've never been this grumpy, aggravated. I'm a pretty up and bubbly guy, and my personality was much different when I was trapped at home. And so this kind of popped up because he had another person he was going to do this tour with.
Yeah.
Ended up it didn't work out, and I was like, I'll go, right? And it was
Cool.
for a lot of, honestly, like being real honest, for a lot of the hardest parts of the lockdowns, because I'm a Canadian, so we've had a different situation than you have here. This tour was the thing that kept me sane.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Do you want to comment on that a little bit?
Similar. I need evidently a relatively high level of chaos in my life. If I don't have,
If you're hanging out with this guy.
he's actually not as chaotic as he looks. But if I don't have a problem to deal with, I feel useless. And I deal better with emergencies than I do with routines.
Yeah.
And I say that there are two groups of people that really were affected by COVID. Those are ones that were really scared and the ones that were really bored. And for, you know, a minor apocalypse, COVID was boring as words I'm not going to say on this show. I'm going to try to remember. And it created a horrible feedback loop with my hermit tendencies anyway.
Right.
And I was doing almost the same thing every day, and it was killing me.
Wow.
So,
Well,
So
I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm happy that you guys are here and that you're getting out and you're like just making it happen. 'Cause there's
We were lucky enough to have a large enough group of people that wanted to bring us out, yourself included. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank
to
you.
actually make this a reality, right? We don't get to do this unless
Right.
people want to come, right? It's just us yelling in a garage if nobody's there, right? So it's because of people like you and your students and clients that allow us to do this. So we're really grateful that we could get the hell out of our houses.
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and I should add, just on that note, that I reached out to the Garfield County Sheriff's Department, who is now hosting and co-sponsoring this event,
nice.
which was really cool because of COVID, and because of some stipulations and I got to watch what I say on camera. I
It's a
actually got
good
kicked
rule.
out of the jail.
Okay.
Not literally kicked out. It's funny. I was so happy to be able to go back in.
Where's the line
as
between
a
released and kicked
volunteer.
out?
What's that?
Where's the line between released and kicked out?
Yeah, right. Well, and it wasn't exactly like they grabbed me by the shirt and
Yeah.
took me out, but you know, they have certain rules as a volunteer, and I was in there under the guise of being a volunteer for my ministry, doing Bible study with inmates. They have a rule that you can't hand your phone number out, and then I also was working as a peer recovery coach and became the treatment provider for the parole department. So I made flyers for one of the case managers, and they were handing my phone number and, you know, contact me. I'll meet you at the gate day one. I'll pick you up and help you get on your feet. I mean, that's really that's part of what I do at Discovery Cafe. That's what we do. And so, yeah, I broke the volunteer rules and they dropped my program. And then COVID hit and we weren't allowed in the jail anyways because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so this is also a gesture. I wanted to offer this for free for local law enforcement and show the community, change the narrative, especially just what's been going on in this country in particular. I don't know how it is in Canada, but with law enforcement and just everything that we saw this year in the streets of America, and how former inmates, you know, I was at Garfield County Jail at one time. I was at the Aspen. I definitely made my rounds in this valley. But that we're all in this community together and that we can all work together and we want what's the best for our community and to kind of change that narrative that it's not like us against them. And so it meant a lot. I reached out to the sheriff and Lou has been great and offered to co-sponsor and help even offset the cost. I mean, they have in on this, so it means a lot to a guy like me especially. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there, and so let's talk about. Oh, go ahead.
No, I kind of want to.
No, I'd love to hear you comment on it.
So here's the story. Ex-con starts helping people, ministry, makes connections with people all the way up to the sheriff. That's something that actually happened. Person who lived it is right here, versus people see stuff on the TV and think there's this narrative. And that narrative becomes more real than what they see day to day on the streets or day to day interacting with people. So when just recognize, and this mostly for the audience, but recognize when you're being manipulated by narrative, because stories is one of the things that affects people more than people learn through story better than any other mechanism except for possibly play. And you have to practice recognizing when you're being manipulated, because otherwise you don't even know.
So let me ask, so just on that note, give us some insight. How do you recognize, how does one recognize if they're being manipulated? I mean, for me, the first thing that came to my mind is the first thing that came to my mind, and I don't know if this has anything to do with it or not, but is self-awareness, is being self-aware and knowing yourself. But I don't know if that's
a huge part, because that's one of the clues. Whenever I read or see anything that I get an emotional reaction to, especially if it's an emotional reaction, if I like something, then I go through and try to pick out what were the word or the wording that triggered the emotional reaction. And then there's a discipline to that, to recognizing the difference. And this comes from report writing.
Report writing when you were in
report writing, because if something bad happened, I'd have to write a report. I wrote a lot of reports. But one of our rules is you couldn't write conclusions. You had to write facts. So I wasn't allowed to write the person was angry. I had to write down everything I saw that meant he was angry, that interpreted as angry, so that someone reading the report would see the same thing. So when someone says this is a bad person but doesn't say why they're bad, that's a conclusion. That's not a fact. That's an interpretation. And so understanding the difference between a conclusion and a fact and an interpretation is, anyway, it's a skill that I think everyone should be taught in grade school. And unless you go into very specific professions, you don't get taught it. And it makes you so easy to manipulate if you can't. So just one basic thing. There's,
Do you have anything?
No, I think the emotional cue is the most important thing, right? If you're feeling something about it, we don't tend to make the best choices when emotional, right? And so that's a big metric for me. I'm a much more emotional person than Rory is. And that was one of the big cues for me coming out of his programs and training with him so much was, if I am heated, if I am in it, I'm probably not making the best rational decision. So that's my metric is, how did this story affect me? Is there an emotional bubble up? And if there is, I need to take a breath and then look at the actual facts of it, not just the narrative that's being presented.
Wow. And it's easy to pick it out with people you disagree with.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of discipline to, these are guys that I like, I agree with them, we're on the same side, and that's still wrong. That's still not a fact, that's an opinion.
Right.
So you mentioned something about, or what I heard.
Sure.
You didn't say it specifically, but is that pause?
Right.
Is that pause of when you feel that emotion, and then and something that you shared about, and it led into what he said, you know, on the feeling, on the emotion, and if it triggers you, and then I guess the thought that I had was checking it with my core beliefs. I mean, that's kind of like my fact checker. I guess for me, I mean, I could be emotional about something, but the decision on how I'm going to react is going to depend upon my belief about, I think, the situation.
And I think
because you can get emotional about something, but it doesn't mean that it's healthy.
the switch.
Go ahead.
The switch, I think, for me, I'm big on language and the certain like words. The thing for me is I try not to react. I try to respond. Respond implies there's some kind of thought process planning, right? There isn't as much time pressure as people think there is. Right? You can take as much time as you want to make a decision. Sometimes there is time pressure, but a lot of times there isn't. So, for example, you read something on social media, you don't need to instantly put on your Facebook status that thing. Don't react, respond. Take some time. You don't need to instantly react to things. So, for me, I try to move away from reacting and more into responding. Have a plan, sit down, think it through. That tends to be a metric for me.
Yeah, there was one, it was all over my Facebook feed a couple years ago. It's just a good example. I don't want to get into names, but everyone had been sharing this story, this news story about a woman who was being sex trafficked and defended herself and got convicted, and everyone was horrified. And so I just went and actually looked at the court case, which is available on FindLaw. And her defending herself was shooting the guy in the back of the head while he was sleeping and then ransacking his home looking for the $25,000 he told her he had.
Right. You went to the facts.
Yeah. And it's one of those, that story fit everyone's narrative and got them so emotional that they were sharing it and spreading it and creating a bunch of hate.
Right.
And then when you go back and look, so when you get excited, there are generally primary sources you can get. And if there's no primary source, you can't trust it at all.
That's great. Yeah. I think you mentioned, Randy, that you acquired or at least helped acquire the skill of not reacting right away on your emotions, on your feelings, from a training that you did with Rory.
Yeah.
So I think that I'd like to talk about those trainings and maybe even back up to like, how did you meet Rory or like, you know, how did you guys first connect and then take us through, if you can, the short version probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Of how and why you guys are in a car driving across the country now, hanging out, doing what it is you do.
Sure. So I've been a martial artist my entire life. I was a bouncer as well, close protection. I call it if I'm a big D&D nerd, so I have the basic character class of martial arts teacher, right? I was a bouncer who did this, who got stabbed, who went here, who did this, right?
You did get stabbed.
I did. I've been stabbed a couple of times. Yeah.
Wow.
So
he says that so casually.
Yes, I tell that story a lot.
Yeah.
But so multiple occasions, not multiple times. One stabbing per occasion, 3 times. So I've been doing this forever, right? I used to compete. I have post-concussion syndrome, so I can't compete too many head injuries.
When you say compete, you're a martial artist
Yeah,
as well.
I was a martial artist for a while. Not so much anymore, but I was for sure. Then I became a bouncer, and I got into it for the reasons of cheap drinks and ladies, not to actually fight. Then it became fighting. And then I got really hurt and was told, after I got stabbed, rather, I kind of gave up martial arts. I'm like, this is garbage, all of this. It doesn't work. I've been doing this since I was 10. I have all these trophies. I actually, like, in a moment of rage, took bats to all my first place trophies.
So let's stop just right there.
Yeah.
So, because why?
Because it didn't work.
Because what you learned all those years.
Did not function in real life. I remember my first fight in a bar. It was against an older, I say he's older at the time. I think he might be about my age now. An older, heavier man, out of shape, biker, beat the crap out of me. And I had all this training and all this martial arts and all these accolades. And we have to look at sport-based martial arts with, there is no reason to tell your fighter they're going to lose. Right? So you want to inflate them because you don't want them walking into the ring with this sense of doubt. Right. That does not translate to the street very well. So I got stabbed. Gave up martial arts for a year, and I've always been a big reader. So I was in a Chapters bookstore. It's a Canadian Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
And I was in the martial arts section. I saw a book that I had never seen before called Meditation on Violence. And Rory hates when I tell this story, but
sorry, man.
It literally, I changed my life so much that when I met Rory, I was like, oh, you changed my life. He said, no, I changed your training. I said, no, you actually changed my life. Because meditations...
Now I don't feel so stupid about what I said when I first came in. Right?
Meditations was all of the things I was feeling in words on paper. It was the rage, the failure, the nobody talks about this. Why don't we talk about freezing? Why don't we talk about, like, the warrior culture and allow that weakness, right? And so I felt I was lesser than. And Rory's book made me feel not like that anymore. And it got me back into it. So with training for a while, because of that book, I wrote a curriculum with KPC Self-Defense. Right. That's my old business. And I went to a training in Washington. And we found out that Rory was going to be in Minnesota. So me and two other guys, Myron Cosset and Yazid Abdallah, we drove cross country to meet him. Wow. So we jumped in. Hilariously, he actually lives like 2 hours where I was training, but we drove across the country because we didn't know where he lived, even though it's on the book.
Yeah. Right.
Went and met him, and I have a habit of making friends and being hard to shake. So my joke with Rory is I've been riding his coattails so hard I'm choking him.
That's awesome.
But we became friends. I brought him up to Edmonton. We did a video together, and then we just shared a lot of similar ideas. And then we came to a place where we realized we both make each other better.
Wow.
Right. So it's
cool.
very cool for me to
Sure.
for him something said like that. He didn't say it, put his mouth, but we came to this place where we kind of became, I don't want to say we're equals, but my opinion holds weight.
Well, iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron, exactly.
Exactly.
And so that's what put us on the road. I'm very happy to be co-headlining. It's awesome because I'm a little bit younger and I don't have quite the accolades he does, but I've been doing this a long time. I have the energy and I really want to help people. So
awesome.
It's been fantastic. So that's what got us here. So I met him through his book, like most people did, and I just very fortunate that we got along.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I don't really, everything you said about meditations on violence, and I was trying to figure out how to say everything basically you said because, and I don't want to harp on it too much, but it was the same thing. But like the same sentiment, but I had much, obviously, different experience. Yes. Always wanted to be a martial artist as a kid, and like my parents it just wasn't in the car. They weren't going to pay for it. It was too much money. It just, I'm not going to go into my early childhood and all that, but it was just always a dream of mine. I had the Rocky poster, bought my own heavy bag in 8th grade, and was trying to just kind of teach myself. I had the Stephen K. Hayes ninja books, it just never happened. And then, of course, I got into the lifestyle and the addiction and everything that I got into. And when I discovered Krav Maga and started training and just loved it and loved the outlet and just, what it meant to me personally, I also had now remember, I started Krav when I was 40. Okay, so, and only did it for about 6 weeks of classes, and then I moved up to this valley to try to reestablish a relationship with my 2 older kids that were still in high school before it was too late. It was right after I got out of prison the last time, and I came up here, and I started, I had over probably, by that time, over 20 years of life on and off the streets, life in jail, life in prison, and everything that comes with that world. Violence, right? Lots of violence. And not that I'm Billy Badass. I mean, I've been hospitalized. I'm just saying what I witnessed, what I experienced, the trauma. And so now I'm doing, we're in these, and it's nothing against Krav Maga, but I'm in these, the only reference I have is Krav Maga because that's all I did. And I'm in these classes, and there were what I felt were some overinflated egos and a false sense of confidence, of like, I mean, because you're training for like, if this exact situation happens, then you do X, Y, and that might work, And I love, and something else, and I believe this was in Meditations of Violence. Well, I love the go button. There's so much I love in there. But you talked about capability versus capacity. And that really, like that book, when I read that book, I think I was like at level 3, and in the system I was in, it went up to level 5, and then you train for your black belt. And so I was like halfway there in that one particular system. And I always like to share that my real education started after I got the black. Then I wanted to question everything that I learned. Like, how come I didn't learn these other things? And I started seeking out the people that I wanted to study with, and you being one of them, and you. But I just saw, I don't know, when I read your book, it just, I felt the same thing where, like, these people in this controlled, safe environment for this 1 hour with the heavy metal music blaring and hitting the pads, and like they have no idea. Like, and I would look at people, and I was very, I evolved. I'd like to think I matured over the last 10 years. But I was like, and they had a lot of guys with a lot more experience, men and women, a lot more experience than me, and instructors included. And I was like I would total that. That guy has no idea. Yeah. And it's not even about like physical. It's not even about brute strength or even skill set. Like, somebody might just pull out a gun and kill you. Yeah. Like you need the whole. Anyways, when I read your book, I felt the same thing. Like this is. I realized this is the market that I need to be in, that I didn't even know existed, and I didn't know how to go about it other than just keep searching and reading more, and trying to find my own truth. I guess it just spoke to me. Yeah. It spoke to me.
Yeah, I think martial arts, good martial arts, can give you a framework to hang other stuff on, because they have studied the body mechanics, and most of them came from historically violent places or times. But without that, in a couple of instructor generations, you start doing what's easy, or you start shifting it so you don't have to talk about the scary stuff, or the stories don't get passed on, or the meanings don't get passed on, so people start doing things that they know but don't understand. Right. And then you circle in and bring in someone who has the experience, then the martial art can become something entirely different for that person and significantly more effective. One of the most important things that's almost never taught is simply ruthlessness.
Right.
And ruthless doesn't have to be, you can be in the same implacable mindset for handcuffing as you can for killing. But taking that level of ruthlessness into it, I am doing this job, you don't get a turn.
Right. Control means control.
Yeah. Right. It means giving no chances. Right. The other person does not have, fights have beats. The other person doesn't get to do anything on their beat. That. All the beats are mine. Yeah. So that, and it makes it really easy when you have some experience to look at someone who's extraordinarily skilled martial artist and know that you could take him. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how.
Right.
They tend to look at it as an if question. We look at it as a how question. Right. There are people with a specific mindset. It's just how. There's no question of if.
And why? So, because I'm nodding my head, and then I'm thinking, like, okay, do I really know what he's talking about? I mean, I believe I do, but I would like you to, I'd like to tell me what we mean by by how? Tell me the
When-
difference between. Tell me.
When I was bouncing, which was long before either of you guys got into it, Chuck Norris was really big in movies and TVs.
Okay.
So one of the questions was, if you had to take Chuck Norris out of a bar, how would you do it? And most people ask the question is, could I take Chuck Norris? Fuck, that's not the question. I almost said a bad word. That's
No,
not.
you know,
It's not
it's
the
okay.
question. Okay,
Yeah, just be
that's not the
yourself.
question. The question is how to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Think outside the box.
Well,
don't think inside of I have to fight him a certain way. Right?
Humans
Right,
aren't knocking
maybe-
out deer when they're hunting. They're not
Right.
punching out elephants when looking for ivory, right? We're problem solvers.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
what we
I like
do.
that.
yeah.
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 Yeah, and taking that out, because as long as that if question is in your head, that if question should never exist.
Right.
It just doesn't belong in there in this situation.
It's saying I don't have the confidence.
Yeah,
Right?
well, and you
It's
start
saying
concentrating on that
Right.
rather than how,
Right.
which is what matters.
Yeah, I love it. Wow, I don't really even know. I'm just kind of processing it all. I think comment. Please say.
Yeah.
Come say something.
Say
Randy,
something.
talk.
Randy's the talker, so
Yeah.
yes, Randy
Yeah,
talk.
help me out
Whenever
here.
we get
I
quiet,
think
you
going
talk.
down this, so we're talking about meditations and why it was different and what brought it up. And the if-how thing is a very big problem for a lot of people. Because you mentioned it's confidence, but it's not even confidence. It's
Yeah, tell me.
It's conditioning. We're conditioned to compete, right? We play football, we play basketball, we play baseball, we play
Right, like this is a
Monopoly.
contest,
So
right?
everything's a contest, so it's always an if. If I could do this, right? Am I stronger? Am I faster? Do I have these abilities if I play fair in the rules that are given?
Right.
When you look at people who are successful at violence, they're not looking at your rules, right? They're not bringing a rule set to this. They're doing what they need to do to make it
Right.
happen, right? They're solving that problem.
Right.
And this is my big distinction. We talk about social versus asocial violence from Rory's book. The big distinction for me is social is a lot of if. Like, if I can take you, make sure I pick the person I can beat up, make
Right.
sure,
Right.
I've got to show my girlfriend that I'm tough or whatever.
Right.
Social violence is how, right? So you might be the biggest, strongest, like most visually deterrent, hard target out there.
Right.
Maybe that's how guy gets his rocks off. He likes that. He wants to take that person down.
Right.
He likes big game hunting, right?
Right.
So
Big game hunting.
it's hunting versus fighting, and that's the
Yeah.
way we like to distinguish the two. So I think when you're looking at violence, it's not, how many sit-ups can they do, how many push-ups. It's what level of ruthlessness, what's their line of what's capable that they're capable of doing.
And this is one of our language issues because there is a purpose for the social fighting.
Yes.
I think
Absolutely.
every young man that I know wants to test himself, and it's good that they want to test themselves. And I like sport arts for that.
Yes.
They're a good, safe way to see what your strength is, what your heart is, how well you can tactically think.
Right.
But we tend to take that model. I don't know if the camera's catching up, but I've been petting the studio dog. I've got hair all over. But that's different than using violence for utility.
Yes.
And too many people think that they're the same, so they take that mindset and they try to take something into a contest. It's never a contest. You talked about hunting.
Yeah.
Hunting, if this is about food, you don't want your family starving because you needed to prove to yourself that you could punch a deer.
Yeah. I'll show
That-
those deer who's boss.
Yeah,
Right.
It's not
Running
the,
around with
it's
those
not the same
antlers.
thing. And same if someone is threatening you or threatening your family, if you're taking into the am I bigger and smarter than he is? That's not the problem. The problem is protecting yourself, protecting your family,
Right.
which means you're going to use a tool because you aren't stupid, and you're going to use the best moment when he's. I picked up a really old book on back when it was called Kano Jiu-Jitsu instead of Judo.
Okay.
And it had this one statement that said that the golden rule of combat is your most powerful weapon applied to his weakest point at his time of maximum imbalance.
Wow.
And
that's good.
I can't improve on that in any way.
That's a solid quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that they. But the imbalance part is in there. I mean, the whole thing is
Yeah.
profound.
Is
Yeah.
with the best you got at the weakest he is when he's least ready.
Right.
That was in the book. That was distinguished between combat and sport.
That's great.
Yeah.
Would you talk? I think it speaks to the comment or the quote, and I don't know if I had them backwards, and I think I had the two right words, but capability versus capacity?
Yeah, I got that from Mauricio Machuca, who's
that?
he's up in Montreal. He teaches a number of martial arts.
Canada.
Oh, Canada. Yeah, he
Rep it.
he has the best mindset on especially knife stuff, if anybody know,
Okay.
because he came up through the Chilean gangs.
Oh, wow.
So he has the most cut up arms of any human being I know that survived.
Wow.
He absolutely knows what he's talking about. But his thing was, you know, and to put it in context, you can teach somebody how to break a neck in a couple of minutes.
Right.
And then they will have the capability to break a neck. They know how. But that has no bearing on whether they have the emotional capacity to do it.
Yes.
We've been listening to podcasts on the way up, and there have been some really good ones. One was, you need that ruthless mindset, and it is really hard to instill through training. It's teaching people to be hard. I can tell you, you need to. One of the things that came up on we have a Patreon thing where we're doing a class a month. So we're trying to get through all the soft skills in about 2 years, and it's pretty intense.
Okay.
But
How do people find that?
Patreon.com/Chiron training.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thanks.
Well, that's important.
That's not
It's-
mine. That's his.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But
Patreon.com/Randy King Live. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Anyway.
It's all good.
Anyway.
It's all good. Yeah.
But one of the things we were talking about is you need to be able to dial up your charm and completely switch off your empathy.
Oh,
If you want to, we were doing the class on the de-escalation month,
Okay.
and that was one of the things. If you want to manipulate your way out of a situation, if you get too caught into their emotions, it's not
Right.
going to work. So you need to be able to cut that off, and that also means that you need to be able to ruthlessly, if it's appropriate and legal, and what you need to do to survive or to have your family survive, stick a blade in them. At the same time, being as openly friendly as possible, building rapport, getting into their heads, asking them questions, smiling.
So I think. Oh, please finish.
It's basically so. This is one of the things I can tell you that till I'm blue in the face. You can understand it.
Right.
You'll have the capability. That doesn't mean you'll have the capacity. The stuff that and this is why I hate video training, because people see it and they think they know it.
So you're saying. You're saying if they see it and they think they know it, what do they need to be doing? Doing it.
It
Experiencing
depends.
it, feeling the emotion of it,
Because-
the anxiety.
Part of it for me is I don't believe that that mindsets are taught, but I know that they grow. We've had people come on the team back when I was on the team who really weren't fit to be on the team. They had the capability, but when it came to capacity, they would freeze,
Right.
or they would choke, or
That's kind of what I
Right.
like. So how
But
does that get
so-
taught? That's
so
the hardest
that's the
thing,
thing,
right?
it's not
is-
taught.
is
I think
getting
it's
people
grown.
to flip that switch.
I think it's grown.
Okay.
Because one of the things, by hanging with people that accepted it as a standard, then it went. Because the thing holding most people back is they've been taught this definition of right and wrong. You know,
Right.
good people don't hit.
Right.
And sometimes good people desperately need to hit.
Right.
So being with good people that you can see, they're moral, they're ethical, they have a great amount of integrity.
Right.
They are compassionate, they care, but they will
Right.
mess somebody up if they need to stop bad things.
Sure.
And be okay with it. And for some of these kids, that's the first time that you can have that ethic.
Right.
And so that's where it grows. And when
Like
they
getting comfortable, like in that space.
Yeah.
Going like this is okay.
Yeah, we mentioned shadow communities, and that's from
Tell me that.
an
Tell me
anthropologist
what-
called
yeah.
Lonnie Athens.
Okay, tell
But
me.
basically, you have all these voices in your head, and there are communities that they're voices that talk about right and wrong and what you should be doing now. And
From growing up.
from growing up, the
from what
people
you've
that you
heard.
know, you have, you know, it's my
like
dad's
that.
been dead for a long time, and sometimes I have long talks with him because
Right.
he was a really smart man.
Right.
So and we all have that.
Okay.
But one of the things you can do is put people in that shadow community that have the ethics you need.
So you can tap into that.
They
when
understand
you
it.
need
So but you have to meet someone that has that. One of the things we talk about, I hate the whole warrior community, whatever society ethics. We aren't forging warriors. Humans are natural fighters. They've been surviving for a long time. We're at best rehabilitating tigers. I don't like the sheepdog analogy because sheepdogs don't work for the sheep. They work for the farmer who's going to kill the sheep or shear the sheep.
Right.
So they aren't the good guys. They're right?
Right. They're hired.
Right.
they're-
Wolves are meaner about
They
it,
just wanna
but
get fed.
long term, the sheepdogs do a lot more damage.
They get paid.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So I don't like
cool.
a lot of those analogies.
Right.
But one thing that's missing within, I'm going to say warrior culture right now, and please figure out a better word and scrub it, is sitting around the campfire listening to the old guys tell their stories. That was something. My dad was a Korea era vet, and he had an annual hunting camp with the guys he'd served with.
Wow.
And so I got to hear about fear and about overcoming fear, and that it was okay for everyone to be afraid. Because most people that don't have that conversation, when they're afraid, they think no one else is afraid. I must be a coward. It's like everybody's fucking afraid.
Right.
If you aren't, you're stupid.
Right.
It's if someone honestly doesn't feel fear, you do not want them anywhere around
Right,
you in a
that's a
dangerous
social-
situation.
Right.
Because they're afraid. They'll do stupid things. They'll play with the gunpowder and the matches.
So jeopardize the whole team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is the difference between toxic masculinity and masculinity. Toxic masculinity is not having a masculine influence in your life to tell you what masculine is.
Yeah.
So you make it up from TV. Right? So I don't show fear. I'm not allowed to be scared. Only cowards,
can't
right?
cry.
Can't cry.
Right.
And then when you meet actual masculine people, so people that know what they're doing, if you don't have that coaching, it's going to make you a crappy person, because then you think everything you're feeling is wrong. You're not like the cowboy. You're not like the hero in the movie. And so you start making really bad choices when you don't have these debriefs with people. Right?
And almost all their instincts are wrong. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, please.
But one of the things that really came up was rookies and people who are fantasizing are the only people that ever say, I need to do this alone. No professional ever does anything dangerous alone if they have any choice whatsoever.
Right.
It's the one of
that
my
came with training, though, right? Would that come with
Well,
training?
training
or
experience.
Or instinct?
One of my friends, he's possibly one of the toughest individuals you will ever meet, and he was teaching a seminar, and he's will you talk about him off camera, because
Sure.
I think you two should. Very
Sure.
similar backgrounds.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to learn more.
And I think you probably know him, at least on Facebook, but he was doing a seminar and said, well, what if this came up? He goes, I call the police. I'm not getting paid to hurt anybody.
Right.
And, it could go bad. I call the police. It's like, but when you handle that, and this kid was thinking that recognizing it, that if he did that, people would think he was afraid.
Right.
And not
Like the smart thing to do.
Yes. It
Right.
wasn't.
To keep us safe.
And you get this, any real professional
No, I get it now.
values intelligence way over bravery, right?
Yeah.
And that, it's not quite the right words, but basically things that look like tough man actions to beginners are almost 180 degrees off of what actual tough people do and think and believe.
Yeah. That's like. Yeah. I'm not going to use that comparison because it will go off base here. But
It'd be
do you-
funny.
Well,
I'm
yeah.
sure it'd
Well, I
be
was just
funny.
going to say that's the whole the big bravado guy. He, acts tough, talks tough. Thinks you want to be scared of the guy that's not saying nothing. That I mean, or not maybe not scared, but you don't know what that Yeah. It's the guy that's reserved. If you have nothing to prove, then you don't have to really say anything.
If someone decorates themselves to look like a tough guy, it's like no natural predator does that. Tigers try not to be seen. They don't try to be
I
seen.
like that. I love that.
That's really good. Yeah.
We got that on tape, right?
Yeah.
Just kidding. Yeah. No, that's great. So do you think, in reference to everything you just said, I'm not a trained. I don't want to sell myself short. I just mean in the traditional sense. I'm not a trained professional. Like I wasn't in the military. I wasn't a law enforcement officer. I think I could relate, like with your friend being like, like this is a situation where we would call the police and people might say, doesn't that make you a snitcher? Isn't that? I mean, a guy from your background, wouldn't you just handle it on your own? You could have handled it. Or, I believe I learned these things I had to experience a lot to come to the conclusion, to come to some of these conclusions of like, I want to be smart. I want to be safe. So can this be taught though? Like, because there's professionals that haven't been through. There's people that haven't experienced a lot of violence that get put into these positions. And what do you say to that? Or
I believe all ethics are taught.
ethics?
All ethics. Your idea of right and wrong as you're growing up as a kid was taught. No, babies are pretty much born sociopaths. It's all about them. They don't even know that other people are real yet.
Right.
Right? And so this is something they learn over time. They learn to be kind. They learn to share. You get your 2-year-old not big into sharing.
Right.
Right? It's something that they're taught and they're rewarded.
Well, not so much. And I agree. I agree. I mean, ethics are. I agree with that. But I meant the. I guess the word that I keep seeing in this box. I use this term a lot when I teach, and I don't know if I'm feeling like it relates to what you're saying, but maybe you guys can help me articulate it. I'm trying to get it out. For me, because I'm really a sensitive. I'm a sensitive guy. Like I don't enjoy hurting people. I don't. I don't know. I don't have to expand too much on it, but I'm a sensitive. I cry a lot in our groups. I can feel. I have a lot of empathy, and I'm comfortable with that today. Having said that, things that I've been through, especially like, when I first became homeless and like really learned the hard way that I'm not as tough as I thought I was. Like when I was on the street and started getting my ass kicked, or my first couple experiences in jail, and the whole environment, like the first time like in the tank, and. There's a whole new etiquette. It's a whole new subculture, and I had to learn how to what I was saying when I say I see that box is compartmentalize, almost like a controlled. I don't want to say sociopath because I know that I'm not, but I was able to, and I don't think it's being a sociopath. It's just like say,
But
I
you
came
have
to
to be able to do what they do.
Yeah,
Or you
like-
can't match them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I've been in situations where I had to do some things to survive, and I knew it wasn't who I was, or if I had the choice, I wouldn't have done that. I wasn't doing it for any other reason than I felt like it was a pure survival necessity, and I was able to compartmentalize my emotions in that moment, and not like I can tap into that place. I can tap into that. Okay, well, sensitive, loving, Christian, whatever labels go on those titles, of who I'm supposed to be, or who I am, not who I'm supposed to be, who I am. I could put all that in this box, and then I can tap into that one. But that wasn't something that anybody taught me. That was something that I think I had to go through certain experiences, and it was a survival mechanism, I think. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. I think all human beings have that.
Sure.
Most have never been in a situation to trigger it.
Did you say that again?
I think all human
Most-
beings have that. I think all human beings can flip that switch.
Okay. Right.
I think it takes a lot of social conditioning as a child to take it away, and I don't think it ever goes away completely. And this you'll get people that won't defend themselves will fiercely defend their children. The switch is there.
Wow, that's interesting. Wow, cool.
But the things is teaching them that they still have the switch. Teaching them how to access it. Right. And then the big part, what we're talking about with the ethics, is teaching them it's okay. There is nothing you did that turned you into a bad person.
Right. Not to.
Okay. It's
You
not
talked about that in some
dying
of your
does not
books,
mean
too.
you're a bad person.
Right. The aftermath,
Yeah.
the emotional stuff
Yeah.
that comes with it. Right.
And one of the things I never want to hear any self-defense instructor ever tell anyone they survived wrong, because that.
Right.
Anyway, this is another one I normally go to profanities just because it really makes me angry.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Right, this is weird for me,
You're
right?
doing awesome.
I think you minimize a little bit. You said you don't have the training. In my opinion, training is just condensing the time it takes you to find the best, most successful ways to survive situations. Your experience does act as training. Most people are trying to get to that position where they can be themselves but then do the job. And that's a struggle that a lot of law enforcement have. A lot of bouncers, security, military people have, is the deeds they do, they think it defines them. And so good training will teach them that. You went the long, hard road to get
Right,
there.
kind of like reverse engineering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Well,
in
that's
my
what most of our training is,
Yes.
reverse engineering experience. or it should
exactly.
be.
So we're trying to
Yeah,
compress.
awesome.
We're trying to compress the time window to
Right.
get people to that place
Right.
without having to go. We want to give them, to the best of our ability, the blood lessons without them having to shed the blood.
And one of the
Excellent. Just
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
because I want to hear. We only have a couple minutes,
Okay.
so on that note,
Yep.
on that note of what you just said, where can other people that are watching this find? What's the name of the training? Where should they go to? No, this is, to me.
Yeah.
This could say this is life-saving stuff. This is life-changing stuff for a guy like me.
Right.
When we talk about the hardest thing, I'll shut the lights off sometimes, when I had a dojo, or
Yeah.
you know, and say the hardest thing is for me to teach you how to flip that. You know, so
Absolutely.
what training do you guys offer where you teach somebody how to flip that? So what would be the best, or what would you recommend? Because we have about a minute left.
Okay. So really
Go.
quick, I don't think training or teaching. I think it's exposure. You get
Exposure.
Right. So you get exposed to the idea. You meet people that can actually do it.
Like hanging
you hear
out.
their stories, and you create the possibility in their mind. And that's as far as I can safely
Create
go
the
in training.
possibility in their mind.
Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
as far as I can safely go in training.
Yeah.
As far as
Yeah, there's
that,
unsafe.
that
There's
people
unsafe
are
ways.
holding themselves back, saying this is the safest, or
No,
or allowing themselves
there
to
there
go
are
there.
ways that you can do some really dramatic engineering in people's heads, but they're dangerous.
Yeah.
They're
Wow, I wanna learn
psychologically
more.
dangerous.
Well, we can talk off
we
camera.
can talk off camera.
Yeah, I'm glad we have all weekend.
Yeah.
For
I'm so
me,
psyched.
just to sum it up really
Yes,
quickly,
please.
is your training needs to match your reality. Don't take training that isn't your reality. If you are worried about your kids being kidnapped as a soccer mom, maybe you don't need to go to Navy SEAL school training, right?
Right,
So
right.
make sure your training matches your reality, because the time you're compressing should actually help you affect your life, not just your made-up fantasy.
Right. Well said. Well, this has been great.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. No. Thanks so
It's-
much.
Gabe,
I appreciate
always
it.
good to spend
Yeah,
time with you.
Thanks, man.